Dun dun dun!
This is pretty, like, fuck extreme. Alright, the weather is so nice. Oh, we need to get you back in the frame here. This is my first time this year wearing sunglasses. We'll just wait for Cammy for a second. Alright, first, we got this piece of mail from Emily in North Carolina. I hope it's food, because I'm kind of hungry right now.
Oh, they smell really good. Oh, it's essential oils. Oh.
Ben and Cammy, hi guys, just wanted to send you some things I thought you'd love and that I love too. Totally one of those crazy people who really like essential oils. It's Lang Lang and bergamot and is great to apply to your neck and wrists to uplift your mood, but it's especially good for sexy time.
Ooh, now Ben's really interested. Look at these.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, that's awesome.
We recently got a comment.
Great video as always, except the part where you said that you allowed Memory to go to Chipotle alone unattended. I was like, what? Sorry, but are you daft? There are child predators everywhere. She's not ugly and is at the right age to be sold into prostitution. Hello? I would no sooner allow my beautiful daughter to go off alone somewhere, especially in a city, than I would sprout wings and fly. Girls disappear all the time. Some never make it back home again, alive anyway. Please don't ever do this again, or she could live up to her name. Become just a memory. Dun dun dun!
This is pretty, like, fuck extreme. In my not so healthy times, this is the type of person I would, like, make fun of. Like my best friend from high school's mom. That was just like sat around watching the news and afraid of everything. I actually think this mode of thinking and talking is something that a lot of people deal with. That's why I wanted to address it in our vlog. Because although this particular example, do you even know what she's talking about, by the way? Like when she's talking about?
Yeah, we were at the Indian restaurant. Memory didn't want Indian, she wanted Chipotle.
By the way, if you're wondering where Memory is, she wanted to go to Chipotle, so she walked to Chipotle.
That was all I said. She walked to a Chipotle across the street. It took her about 5 minutes. It was her choice.
She's 12.
So the first thing I notice is she says, sorry, but are you daft? I didn't know people still use that word, like.
Maybe she's from England. Sorry, but are you daft? Are you bloody daft?
If she says it in the accent, it sounds better, I think. Man, this lighting is not good anymore. All right, now we're both in the sun. But there's this mindset that kind of says, if you're doing something that I don't approve of, or that I wouldn't do, maybe, you must be dumb, or you must be an idiot, or you must be less smart.
There's all these assumptions being made, for sure. Or it's like it's almost like a morality thing.
Yes, it's not just assumptions, because there's assumptions like she could have assumed that this is an inner city, and Memory was walking miles, which isn't true. But it's like there's a belief that if you do a certain number of practices, then you are wrong or dumb. Like there is a way to parent people, like an absolute right and wrong, and it's kind of like universally obvious. Like, oh, of course you wouldn't leave your child unattended.
Well, it's funny. It's like, at what age would it be okay to this person for Memory to do that? Never. Like, does she always have to have a buddy because she's a woman? You know, it's just like, it kind of breaks down at some points. Like, this is a personal preference of hers, which is fine if she wants to parent that way, but
well, it always breaks down. Because if you look at how people are internationally or historically, we live in a very unique time. You know, a 12-year-old, it's viewed unsafe. I mean, unless you're in the Wild West or...
Well, and I think people assume that the world has gotten worse over time than in the 1980s, late 1980s, early 1990s, when I was riding my bike everywhere, like a scope of several miles. No one batted an eye at that. Was child sexual predatoriness not a thing back then? Or were people not as afraid because they weren't so immersed in the media frenzy of not only showing every worst, scary thing they can around the world 24/7, but also hyping it up, like making it like crazy, like, this is happening to everyone.
So this is what she says, especially in a city, girls disappear all the time. Some never make it back home again. If we actually were to base these decisions off our real life experience, I guess I'd ask this person, do you know of anyone that's been abducted? Or do you just watch Netflix or hear about this happening all the time? Because we all hear about it happening all the time, but that's because literally 5 cases could happen in the country and they make the biggest headlines on the news and on our Facebook feeds. And then it sparks this whole, frenzy of what we should do to be a responsible parent.
Because God forbid I become the parent of one of those children. Like, we know this shit happens. We're not trying to deny that it doesn't happen. But knowing it happens is one thing, and living your life a certain way where you're afraid of every little thing is quite another.
Every parent needs to do kind of like a cost-benefit analysis or a cost-risk analysis. And this is what the whole video was about filtering water. There's not just a black and white directive that everyone should do it. It's complicated. Like, you have to think about how much it costs you, which is always changing. Man, that sun's
moving again.
Based on the information you have, what are the risks? But also, like, what are the risks from never letting your kid out of your sight? Because there's a benefit or a risk there. If you want to say, like, okay, never let your kid go anywhere alone. Mm-hmm. I don't think people realize like how much that costs a child's learning, a child's confidence, like just the freedom of a family. Like, one of the things I love right now, we have a store that's like 4 blocks away. Our kids go there all the time alone.
Libraries 6 blocks away.
5 days a week they walk there and they do shopping for meals. I mean, they're not just like fucking around buying baseball cards. I mean, although, what if they were? Like, that's part of being a kid too, is exploring your environment and having freedom and learning in that way. And I think anytime you take this approach towards parenting, where you just like prioritize one thing above everything and you create a universal rule that you feel like you have to follow by yourself, and then you apply to others. And that's what she's doing here, that I think is kind of the crime, is she's taking her valuation.
Call it a crime. I would call it an overstepping of her own boundary.
I mean, I don't think it's literally a crime.
Yeah, okay.
But I think it's kind of like oppression. Like, my guess is, if this person talks to her family members this way, or people that are close to her, with this same kind of like perspective, this absolutist mindset, people hate that. Like, they don't want to be treated that way. Like, that feels really oppressive and really
demeaning.
Yeah, just because like she's smarter than all them. So I think that's a crime.
I think your opinion matters. I don't think someone's opinion should overshadow or be more important than anyone else's. This next comment, this person says, "Oh my goodness, please have Filia wear a helmet." They're like, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe." Like, the "oh my goodness" part is almost like, I can't believe my eyes.
Are you daft?
I can't believe there is a child in the US who is not wearing a helmet while riding a bike. While riding a bike.
On our sidewalk, she never goes into the street, and she doesn't go past more than like 5 miles an hour, and her head's like 3.5 feet off the ground. I mean, this is just like the same thing. There's like this rule. It's so funny to me because I see kids wearing helmets that are like, they're riding like tricycles.
Ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
But just there's this like rule, like, oh, if you're a good parent.
Which, this is an interesting one for me because this seems so recent. Because when I grew up, there was not helmets available. And now it's like, oh, there's helmets available, but there wasn't, no kid wore a helmet riding a bike when I grew up that I saw. And I was one of them that didn't ever wear a helmet. And now it's like all of a sudden, well, we're more educated now, so we should be wearing helmets. Especially when we used to live in Seattle, like that area, Portland, people are like, if you're not wearing a helmet, it's as if you killed God. I kid you not. It's like so close.
So do you know what these two comments have in common? They have a common word.
Please?
Yes.
pleading.
Both these people, they say please. It kind of triggers me now because I feel like that word, it's like manners, right?
Manipulative.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't come across as that. It's like, oh, I use manners, so therefore anything I say is not condescending. When actually telling anyone to do something as if you know better than them about their life, just because you say please, I'm like, please stop smoking cigars right now. Please wear a bra right now. It like assumes there's like what's on the surface is like, oh, say please and thank you, that means you respect people, but actually what's being said with the words is you can't think for yourself, let me help you,
right?
Please go take care of that, and then you know. So I think
I don't even
funny.
really like talking to my kids this way, although I do it. But talking to another adult that way too it's very condescending.
I want to talk about a lot of these issues that are brought up, these hot topic issues, which is helmets and child abduction, and these things that as parents are actually kind of scary. And I can see why these issues are being brought up, and while I don't think people would talk in this way, my guess is a lot of parents, they do think about, oh, what if my kid did get in a bike wreck, or what if my child was abducted?
I've put myself in those scenarios. Just recently, Memory had pink eye, and I'm reading online, and they're like, it could cause blindness, and I'm talking to my mother-in-law, and she's like, you should go to the doctor, and I'm like, if my kid got blindness from pink eye, and in my mind, I could have prevented it. There's so much shame that I would have felt that I could see by putting on the helmets and making sure your kid never goes anywhere again and by themselves. You feel like you're protecting yourself from that like societal shaming.
And it feels like the new goal of parenting becomes trying to prevent these one-off things from ever happening.
Yeah.
And if these things ever were to happen, then your role as a parent is now a failure.
Yeah.
If your kid ever does fall and break a bone, or get hit on the head, or your child gets abducted, you have to look at everything that you did before that and say, it wasn't worth it, I messed up. And the time that I really thought about this was when we were hiking, when we were first doing the Wonderland Trail, this 95-mile loop around Mount Rainier in a national park. We're doing this thing that's like outside of society's norm. And I remember thinking, if one of my kids dies here, how do we respond? Because I know what people are looking for. They're looking for us to say, see, it was stupid to hike, we should have stayed home, and we shouldn't have gone out into the wild. Because that was a dumb choice just because it didn't work out this one time. Where there's like always gonna be those instances where it doesn't work out. And I think every time you leave the house, or even if you stay home, there's a risk. But when you're doing things that are like unusual to society at that time, then there's this like shame element that, oh, you should have done it differently.
You knew better.
But if you get hit in the car on the freeway to McDonald's, with both driving in the car and going to McDonald's, I think is way more dangerous than hiking ever will be. But if you did that, no one would ever say, oh,
well, if you weren't wearing a seatbelt,
don't drive in a car anymore, or don't go to McDonald's, because those are accepted things.
Normal things in our society, and I don't think they're wrong. I do it all the time. Well, maybe not the McDonald's thing. I would though, if I was really, really hungry and McDonald's was the only thing. I would.
I was kind of hungry. I was hoping there was some McDonald's in this box. When I played the game of blackjack, I learned that you can never look at one session, the results of one session, to determine how to emotionally feel about what you're doing. Because when I would go into a casino, even though I mathematically was able to beat the game, about 49% of the time I would lose. And you would win about 51% of the time. So you kind of like would feel bad if you looked at exactly what happened. But instead of looking at what would happen on an individual basis, you had to ask this other question, which is, if I were to play this game 1,000 times this exact same way, is it more likely to be beneficial than not? And I think as parents, instead of just trying to prevent these like one things, oh, I'm never gonna have a loss. Oh, my kid is never gonna get hurt. Oh, my kid will never get abducted. You can like live your life that way to try and ensure that that will never happen, or you can try and make decisions in such a way where at the end of a lifetime you have more positive things that you're proud of than negative things.
Like that was a life well lived. That was a childhood well lived, whatever that is to you.
Which no one gets to their end of their life, and at their funeral people are like, man, Cammie was so great because she was so safe. Like that's not a
She
noble...
always wore a helmet.
It's not a noble mission or purpose. I think safety is great when you implement it as part of a way to achieve a bigger goal. But when it becomes the mission itself, I think we've lost track as parents, as individuals, as a society. And without really being aware of it, I think that's what a lot of these comments, that mindset, is what it indicates.
My guess from my own experiences is these comments are coming from a place of fear. And I've never made great decisions. I guess I shouldn't say never. Probably 98% of the time I've made decisions out of fear. It's usually not so great. Fear can be really crippling, and I think it's a real thing that I've dealt a lot with. But I don't really want to just give into it all the time. Or I want to just actually admit or be aware that when I'm making a decision out of fear versus actually making a decision out of let's talk about the costs of it and let's talk about the benefits. I feel like these people are only seeing the cost, not the benefits of Filia riding her bike without a helmet, not the benefits of Memory being able to walk to Chipotle because she didn't want Indian. I mean, how great is that? You know, only in America, right?
Dude, or you can have Mexican food and Indian food. That's America.
She was able to exert her independence as a 12-year-old woman, and walk and get herself some Chipotle, bring it back, eat it with the rest of us.
And I've learned that you can never know someone else's costs and benefits.
That's a good point.
Like whatever your experience is with safety or your perceived perspective of cost, benefits, or risk, to apply that to someone else is a really prideful and judgmental thing to do.
And I actually would call that daft, because how do you know that person's their heart, their motives, where they're coming from in life, their background? I mean, there's just so much we don't know about other people. I think it's really good when I can approach someone knowing I don't know anything about them, so I can only go from my own experience. That's it.
And I think it's possible to show people another perspective. Like if someone was to say to us, hey, did you know that people get abducted? And maybe toss out some stats. I could then say, oh, I didn't know that at all. Wow. Or I could say, yeah, we're aware of those stats and we took that into account, but we still think it's worth it. But when you tell people exactly what to do, not just show them information, it kind of assumes that you know all the information, and it assumes that you know exactly their situation and the direct result of what they should do, which I think really pushes people away and is a real conversation killer. My guess is if you believe certain things are absolute things, there's going to be people in your life that believe things differently, and they are going to create boundaries between you. I mean, I think we have 6 kids. They're going to raise their kids differently. And if we approach each of them, not even talking about safety issues, but just like preferential things that might have safety as a factor, and be like, duh, kid, you should do it this way. Well, they're going to come to different beliefs, and I'm glad they are. And
like some of our kids might actually put helmets on their kids, and I hope that I'm not like, the That is so, why do you do that? I didn't do that. You were fine. That's not helpful, you know, for the relationship at all.
So that's what I think about these comments, but really, you guys, I think that to personalize it, it's really easy to see others this way. You know, we have family members around here and friends that have new kids, and it's so easy for us to look at them and be like, oh, I can't believe you would do this. And to almost forget that we were in that same spot, and that you can't move to be where you are now without going through certain things, and that it's okay for people to be in that spot. It doesn't make you dumber.
Okay for people just to be different. Maybe they'll have a bunch of kids and they'll never parent them the way I parented them. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
I don't know if you guys have seen that show. What's it called? Babies or something? It was like some Disney movie. And they show these 3 kids.
Oh, in different countries all over the world. Oh, that's
and they showed this one kid, like the mom's like breastfeeding him, just like with her boobs hanging out in Africa. And the kid like picks up this bone from the dirt and just starts like chewing on it. And it's like a toddler.
Yeah.
And you're just waiting for the mom to take the bone away. And it like never happens. And the baby's just like chewing on the bone like from the dirt. That feels like unsafe, unclean, dangerous. But it's like, I mean, probably a bone from a dirt is a lot more sanitary than, or less dangerous than a lot of the chemicals we use around our kids. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but the point being, who am I to tell that mom, oh.
Are you daft?
Maybe you shouldn't let your kid chew on bones.
Please don't give your child dirty bones.
They'd be like, that's their toy.
What do you guys think? Hashtag safety second. A lot of what we encountered on the Appalachian Trail, I think, was the reason why we were able to do it was because we thought this thing could be really cool, and then we asked questions about safety. How can we make this experience the most safe as possible given our values? But as parents, if safety becomes the main goal, it kills conversation. I think it makes for a pretty poor life and relationships. But I know this is a hard thing, so.
It is hard.
Let us know what you think.
Yep.
In the comments.
It's hard being a parent.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.